What's up YouTube? I'm here doing my prediction video for UFC Fight Night Overeem versus Sakai. Let's start at the bottom. The first fight is Cole Smith versus Hunter Azure. To me, I think Cole Smith looks like a decent overall grappler, but I think Hunter's just better at both wrestling and striking. I think Cole, he's got some height and reach, but I just think Hunter's just the better boxer, and he's the faster guy overall, and more athletic. I just don't really see a ton of ways Cole can win this unless he can, like, on the ground scramble and take Hunter's back or something. But other than that, I just think, like I said, I think Hunter's just the better striker, and he's just faster and a much stronger wrestler. So I think he's either going to win a pretty clear-cut decision or maybe get a later TKO, but I'm going with Hunter Azure. Next is Alexander Romanova versus Marcos de Lima. To me, Marcos, I just think, is the much better striker, and he's overall on the ground. I would probably give an edge to Alexander, but I don't think he's going to go there. It's hard to tell how good Alexander is when you see these guys who haven't fought anyone good yet, even if they're undefeated. It's like you can't tell how good they are. I'm just leaning towards Marcus because I feel like if it is on the feet, I definitely think he has a big advantage. If it's on the ground, I think Romanov could pull off the get the submission. I think this one can go either way, but I'm leaning towards Marcos just because it starts on the feet, and I feel like as long as he's smart about it, he could probably keep it there and win by knockout in like the first round. Next is Vivian Araujo versus Montana De La Rose. And this fight should be on the main card. Like, this is probably the second or third best fight on the whole card. I don't know why it's this early on the fight night. It's really weird. I think these chicks fight pretty similar. They're both like striker or jiu-jitsu chicks. They both also primarily like fight on the ground. If it is on the feet, I give the slight edge to Vivian. I think she just hits harder. But I don't think it's going to be on the feet for too long. I think it's going to be mostly on the ground. And I think they're both high-paced jiu-jitsu chicks. Montana is a little bit better of a wrestler. It's so tough. Like, even right now, I'm thinking about it, and I just feel like either one of these chicks could submit each other at any moment. It was this. This is like a higher level version of the fight between the Brazilian chick and the American chick, Emily Whitmire and the Brazilian chick. I can't remember her name last week. Where I felt like that was a lower level thing where they were both jiu-jitsu chicks, but that submission could have come from either one of them. This feels like a much higher level of that, where it's like, you know. I'm leaning towards De La Rose. Like, I'm taking a long time, but it's because I really couldn't decide until this moment, because I feel like it's that close. But I'm going with De La Rose. I think she's going to win a close decision or get a random submission in one of the scrambles. Next is Andre Munoz versus Bart Fimbisky. And to me, I don't have too much to say about this fight. I think they're both just okay strikers. They're primarily grapplers, and Bart's is just a really strong wrestler with good submission defense and decent ground and pound. I think he's probably going to get the takedown pretty early in every round and just control Andre the entire time. I just don't think Andre's going to be able to stop Bartz from taking him down and controlling him for 3 rounds. So I got Bartz winning by a 30-27 decision. Next is Thiago Moises versus Jillian Turner, and to me, I think this is going to be kind of like Thiago's last fight. I think on the feet, it's going to be close / Jillian winning, and then when he does eventually drag it to the ground, we're going to see a pretty fast sub. I think, Jillian's like a blue belt, purple belt. He's not amazing on the ground. He's just really long and big. I think Thiago Moises, he's been doing jiu-jitsu his whole life. I mean, he's a really solid black belt. I think as soon as he can get this to the ground, he's probably going to win pretty easily by submission. I don't know when it's going to happen, but other than him getting caught by a huge shot, the second he gets this to the ground, I think we're going to see it start to really become super dominant, and I think he's going to win by pretty much whatever submission he can grab once it's on the ground. So I'm going with Thiago Moises to win by either round 1 or 2 submission. Next is Brian Kelleher versus Kevin Natividad. I don't know I think that's how you say his last name. To me, Kevin just looks like a decent striker. He has some wrestling, but I just think Brian Kelleher, with his pace, with his overall wrestling and jiu-jitsu transitions, he's just way better. I mean, this is a lot of fights for Kelleher, but this is another one at featherweight, so he's not cutting to 35. And I also just feel like, his pressure and his ability on the ground is just better. I think Kelleher is going to either win by submission or decision. I think the longer this goes, the more tired Kevin's going to be, because I think Kevin's the one taking this on short notice. And I just see Kelleher eventually, most likely winning by submission with like a rear naked choke or a guillotine in like the second round. Next is Michael Pereira versus Zalim Imadov. And to me, Michael Pereira, he basically won his last fight. He just threw an illegal knee because he's an idiot. I mean, he was dominating the fight pretty clearly. He just wasn't smart at the end, and you know, ended up losing a fight he was basically about to win. Zaleem, to me, he looks like a good striker with some wrestling. I think these guys both have conditioning issues. I just think overall Pierre is the better striker, and I think this is primarily going to be a striking fight for as long as it lasts. I don't know if Pierre will knock him out, but I do feel like whatever happens is going to end in a knockout in the first 2 rounds most likely. And I'm just leaning towards Pierre because I do think he's the better striker. They're both wild though, so I mean anything can happen. But yeah, if I had to pick, I'm picking Pierre by KO. Next is Shajar Eubanks versus Carol Rosa, and this is tough because I feel like technically Sajara is slightly better everywhere, but I think Carol is the slightly bigger, more natural 35er, and I think that she's looked really good so far in the UFC. She's 2-0. I think her record's either 13-3 or 14-3 overall. She's primarily a striker. She's like a sprawler and a striker. And like I said, I think the size is going to be a big thing. I think that she is a more natural 35er, as where Sajara is one of those people who's like in between, 25 and 35. She's too big for 25 and she's too small for 35. And that's why she struggles against people that I think she's better than. It's really tough, but I'm leaning slightly towards Carol just because I think the size is going to be a big thing, and I think she is the better striker overall. I think that on the ground, Sajara's got a big advantage, but I don't know how easily she's going to be able to get it there. When she's not this insanely good wrestler, a lot of the time the way Sajara gets people to the ground is because at 25 she's just way bigger and she's able to muscle them down there. And we've seen, since she's moved up to 35, she's way harder time dragging people to the ground because she can't just outsize them. When you're smaller, you can't just, lean on them and take them to the ground. So, because I don't think she's going to be super successful in taking Carol to the ground, because it's going to be striking for the most part, I think Carol's just the better striker, and I think Carol wins a decision. Next is Ovince St. Preux versus Alonzo Menafield, and to me, I feel the same way about this fight that I did last week or 2 weeks ago. I think Alonzo in the first round can beat most people, but I think that the longer this goes, the more it favors OSP. I also think OSP's got a huge advantage on the ground. Like, they're both primarily strikers, but the thing is, Alonzo's really not this huge ground guy. I feel like his ground game consists of just not getting taken down and getting back up to his feet right away, which is fine. There are tons of guys that fight like that, but the problem is that we've already seen that he tends to gas. And, I mean, OSP doesn't have an insane cardio tank, but I do think it's better than Alonzo's. And I also feel like I said, like, he's huge. Like, if OSP's on top of you, you're going to have a hard time getting up. Like, when he's on top of guys, like, he looks like he covers their whole fucking body. Like, he's a gigantic man. And I just feel like that's what's going to happen eventually. I think OSP is going to try to clinch with him against the fence, just wear him out. And I think eventually when he gets on top of him, Alonzo's not going to be able to get up as easily as he did in his last fight. I think that, like I said, OSP's a way bigger guy and longer overall. I think that he's just going to be able to smother Alonzo and win by submission in, like, the second round, probably. So I got OSP winning by round 2 sub. And finally, on the main event, it's Alistair Overeem versus Augusto Sakai. And this fight's weird just because I feel like, Overeem is always such a coin flip because he hasn't been able to take shots super well throughout his career. And that's always been a huge, thing for him. It's, skill-wise, he's top 5. Durability-wise, he's, not even in the top 15 a lot of the time. Like, his last fight was, a crazy thing, but that's so rare. His ability to flip things around, that almost never happens with him. And that's always the scariest thing with Overeem, because it's, skill-wise, I think he's just better than most people. And I think that cardio-wise, he's starting to get a lot better, because that was a huge heal. The big weakness is still the durability. Like, it's always this thing that just, makes it where these people who, like I said, in my opinion, just aren't as good as him, always have a chance to beat him. I think this fight's mainly going to be a kickboxing match, and like I said, I think Overeem's just better. I think that when these guys can catch each other and knock each one out, it's probably going to be in the first 2 rounds. And I'm just leaning towards Overeem. I feel like Sakai is primarily a kicker, and I think Overeem, once he starts to get the range of those kicks, will be able to set up a counterpunch and win by KO. But like I said, my biggest fear is that Overeem is always super catchable. But I do feel like skill for skill on the feet, Overeem's just the better kickboxer. And Augusto's just primarily a kickboxer. I think he's just going to throw with him on the feet. And like I said, I think because he's primarily throwing kicks, once Overeem can kind of get the range of that, I think he's going to set up a counter shot and win by KO. So I got Overeem winning by the first 2 rounds KO. Anyway, thanks for watching, guys. Please like and subscribe.